Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel Dr. Barkis Ophthalmology Tutorials. Today I will be covering very short but important topics, that is inflammation of glands of eyelids and anomalies or abnormalities with respect to position of the eyelashes. Okay, so we will move on to the inflammation of the glands of the eyelids. So we'll start with the inflammations of the glands of the eyelid. For that, the knowledge of the anatomy of the glands of the eyelids is very important. If you missed the video, please go to the description box and find the link and go through the video of the anatomy of the eyelids. Okay, so just to brief, we have mainly three important glands in the eyelids. That is the meibomian gland, glands of Zeiss and glands of Moll. Okay, so this is the meibomian gland which is lying posterior to the tarsal plate. And anteriorly we have the eyelash, in which we have the attached the glands of Zeiss and glands of Moll. Again, hope you remember that these two glands secrete the sebum, whereas the glands of Moll secrete the watery content. So all these inflammations are mainly with the meibomian gland and glands of Zeiss. Okay. So there are certain predisposing factors for all these conditions. So if you consider the age group, it is more common in children and young adults, but still can occur in the old age also. If it is associated with rubbing of the eyelids, like frequent rubbing of the eyelids may be secondary to blepharitis or secondary to the allergic conjunctivitis. Okay. So if there is history of recurrent lesions like recurrent chalazion or recurrent external hardeolum, do rule out the refractive errors in children, chronic blepharitis and diabetes. Okay. So these can be the predisposing factors for the inflammation of the glands of the eyelids. So there are two glands in the eyelids, meibomian gland and the glands of Zeiss. If there is acute infection of the meibomian glands, the condition is known as hardeolum internum. Okay, and if there is chronic non-suppurative inflammation of the meibomian gland, that is called as chalazion. Okay, so similarly for the glands of Zeiss, if there is acute infection of the glands of Zeiss, it is called as hardeolum externum. Just remember, depending upon the position of these glands of Zeiss are located near the eyelash, which is facing towards the skin, and hence called as hardeolum externum. This is towards the conjunctival side, which is attached to the tarsal plate, so it is called as hardeolum internum. Okay, coming to internal hardeolum. So just remember the pathophysiology of all these conditions. Don't try to mug up the symptoms of the signs or the treatment part. If you understand the pathophysiology of each condition, you can predict what symptoms patients can come with or what signs you can elicit, and even the treatment where you should intervene. Okay, so the internal hardeolum is nothing but the acute infection of the meibomian glands. Okay, so the definition goes like this, that is acute infection of the meibomian glands. Okay, the causative organism, it is nothing but the Staphylococcus aureus. Staphylococcus aureus is the causative organism. So it can directly infect the meibomian gland, that is called as primary infection by Staphylococcus, or if there is already a chalazion which is formed there, and it can get secondarily infected by Staphylococcus. Okay, so how the patient will present with? As I told, it's an acute infection, so obviously patient will have all the symptoms of acute infection, like patient will come with pain in the eyelid along with the swelling because of the meibomian gland, and there will be redness of the eyelids. Okay, so these are the symptoms patient will present with. So what are the signs? You will have a tender eyelid, okay, because there is infection and inflammation acute, and there is redness of the eyelid and a swelling which is more towards the conjunctival side. Okay, and it can sometimes form a pus pointing area which is again seen on the conjunctival side. Okay, these are the signs of internal hardeolum. So coming to the treatment part, how we want to treat? Again, go to the pathophysiology. There is an infective component, so treat with oral antibiotics here. That is, you can use broad spectrum amoxicillin tablet. Along with there is inflammation, so treat with NSAIDs. And if the condition is in the pus pointing type, then you can put an incision and drain the pus. Okay, so these are the treatment options for the internal hardeolum. On to the chalazion. Again, this is, as I told, it is not infective in etiology. There is something chronic inflammation which is happening in the glands of meibomian gland. So we will see the pathophysiology first. Okay, So there is low grade inflammation by very low virulent organisms, which will lead to epithelial cells and the inflammatory cells infiltration into the glands, thereby blocking the opening of the meibomian gland. So the secretion of the meibomian gland, which is sebum, is pent up there only in the meibomian glands. So this pent up sebum will stimulate the lipogranulomatous inflammation, thereby leading to chalazion. Now you can frame the definition of the chalazion. So the definition will be, it is non-infective chronic lipogranulomatous inflammation of the meibomian glands. Okay, so this is chronic non-infective lipogranulomatous inflammation of the meibomian gland. So coming to the symptoms, again see the pathophysiology. It is not acute infection, so there is no question of acute inflammatory signs, but the patient will have a swelling which can be single or multiple, which is there for more than weeks or months silently, or the upper eyelid more commonly because of the more number of the meibomian glands there. So there can be secondary effects of the swelling of this chalazion. Secondary effects include blurring of vision due to the astigmatism, which is induced by the pressure effect of the chalazion. So chalazion can compress over the cornea, leading to astigmatism, thereby leading to blurring of vision. And if the chalazion is over the lower eyelid near the medial canthus or the punctum, there can be eversion of the eyelid because of the heaviness of the chalazion that can lead to what is called as watering. Okay, so the patient can present with watering depending upon the location of the chalazion. So coming to signs, so we have a swelling. So coming to signs, we have a swelling here, which is because of the meibomian gland. So it is away from the eyelid margin. It is more towards the conjunctival side, and there are no signs of acute inflammation in the conjunctiva, but there is reactionary hyperemia of the conjunctiva. It can be a single or multiple chalazion, as I told, and it is more common in the upper eyelid. Sometimes it can be pointing towards the conjunctival side, or it can be pointing towards the marginal side, that is lid margin. This is called as the marginal chalazion. Okay. If the contents of the meibomian glands are opening almost from the duct itself, but pent up secretion, that is called as marginal chalazion. So these are the signs which you elicit in chalazion examination. So what can be the course of this chalazion? Complete resolution of the chalazion is very rare. It can increase in size and become big and end up in incision and curettage. It can burst open on the conjunctival side, leading to a fungating mass-like thing, or it can get secondarily infected by Staphylococcus aureus, leading to hardiolum internum, or there can be calcification within the chalazion, and even there can be malignant changes in the chalazion. So whenever patient presents with recurrent chalazion, send the contents of biopsy for histopathology to rule out the malignant changes in chalazion. So coming to the treatment options, we have hot fomentation, intralesional steroid injection, and incision and curettage. Coming to hot fomentation, give hot compresses 2 to 3 times a day for almost 4 to 5 days. It will liquefy the contents of the glands and helps in the drainage. Coming to the second treatment, intralesional long-acting steroids, that is triamcinolone, can be given into the lesion itself. Thereby you are reducing the inflammation and treating the chalazion. And this is so the intralesional triamcinolone is indicated whenever the lesion is near the margin or near the medial canthus or the punctum. So next is the definitive treatment, that is incision and curettage. Remember, it is the curettage word which should be used, not the drainage. Okay, when the question is asked, tell incision and curettage. Okay. So coming to procedure of the incision and curettage, it is done under local anesthesia by giving 2% lignocaine in the submuscular plane, that is below the orbicular sapulary muscle here. Then achieve the local anesthesia. Then with the help of your chalazion clamp, you will be clamping around the chalazion area, that is the prominent area. Then avert the eyelid and see on the conjunctival side there will be a prominent pus pointing area here. You just incise over that and try to curate all the contents of the chalazion. Okay. So after that, when you remove this clamp, give some amount of pressure, thereby you are preventing the bleeding into the cavity which is created. After the procedure, patient is put on broad spectrum antibiotics like amoxicillin and the NSAID drugs. Okay. So this is about incision and curettage. Remember, this external hardiolum is also called as style. So there is acute infection of the glands of Zeiss. So what will be the symptoms? Patient will have pain, but compared to the hordeolum internum, the pain is less intense here. Patient will have pain, a localized swelling, and there can be redness of the eyelid. So what are the signs of the external hordeolum? Patient will have a localized swelling which is more towards the lid margin, okay, and it is tender to palpate. Sometimes it can be a pus pointing towards the eyelash. So this depends upon the stage of the external hordeolum, which has two stages, that is stage of cellulitis and stage of abscess formation. So in case of cellulitis, patient will have more of redness and swelling, whereas in case of abscess formation, there will be a pus pointing towards the eyelash. So coming to the treatment, again see the pathophysiology. It is an infective origin. It is infective in origin. So and the cause is here Staphylococcus. So treat with the broad spectrum antibiotics and NSAIDs. And if there is pus pointing towards the eyelash, just epilate the particular eyelash. Thereby you are draining the contents of the disease gland. So this is a treatment for external. Now we will move on to the eyelash disorders. We have trichiasis. So coming to trichiasis, it is nothing but misdirected eyelashes with the eyelid being in the normal position. So all the words are important. The normal position of the eyelid is important because if there is inward turning of the eyelid itself, that is called as entropia, there will be automatically inward turning of the eyelashes. But if you correct the eyelid position, the misdirected eyelashes will also get corrected. But in case of trichiasis, your treatment is directed towards the eyelash. Okay. So what causes this trichiasis? It is mainly because of the some contraction on the conjunctival side. The contraction could be because of secondary to burns. It can be secondary to your cicatricial pemphigoid. It can be secondary to your Stevens-Johnson syndrome. Even it can be secondary to the membranous conjunctivitis also. Or anything in the lid margin. Any scar, which can be one surgical scar or even following the trachoma or following chronic blepharitis. A scar which is left on the eyelid margin can also lead to misdirected eyelashes. So this is about the causes of trichiasis. So what this trichiasis will lead to? So this is the eyeball, this is the cornea. The eyelashes should have been in the outward and downward direction. Now it is almost in the opposite direction, that is it can be one or row of eyelashes. So there are eyelashes. So now the eyelashes are turning in opposite direction. They are almost touching the anterior surface of the cornea also. So this is misdirected eyelashes, that is trichiasis. So you can imagine the symptoms here, what patient can present with. So there is chronic pricking sensation because of the eyelashes, and patient will have dry eye symptoms, and also there can be even ulcer formation over the inferior half of the cornea. So coming to signs, you will see one or more eyelashes which are turned in. Okay, if there is corneal involvement, you can see there are multiple abrasions on the inferior half of the cornea, or even there can be non-healing corneal ulcer. Okay, so these are the consequences of the sequelae of trichiasis. So coming to the treatment option, we have epilation, electrolysis or diathermy, cryotherapy and surgery. So epilation is very simple OPD procedure. With the epilation forceps, you are just pulling out the eyelash which is causing the problem. So this becomes treatment option when only one cilia is misdirected and is not causing so much of problem. But the disadvantage with the epilation is the eyelash will grow back within no time. Almost within 1 to 1.5 months, the eyelash will grow back, leading to the symptoms recurrence. The electrolysis is almost permanent solution. For this, you should have lid block. You should give the lid block, that is anesthetize the lid. Then with a fine needle, you will be passing a current of 2 milliamps for 10 seconds to the hair follicle at the root of the eyelash. Okay. So first you achieve the lid block by giving the local anesthesia. Then with a fine needle which is inserted onto the eyelash bulb or the root of the eyelash, 2 milliamps of the current is passed for 10 seconds. Thereby you are loosening the eyelash from the hair follicle root itself. Then epilate the eyelash. In diathermy, almost everything is same, but here a current of 30 milliamps is passed for 10 seconds. Okay. In cryotherapy, you are using a probe, a cryoprobe at minus 20 degrees centigrade for 20 to 25 minutes on the outer surface of the skin or the outer surface of the lid margin. You are keeping this probe by doing double freeze thaw technique. You are epilating the forceps. Okay. The only disadvantage with cryotherapy is depigmentation of the skin. So that you should keep in mind. In surgery, we have wedge resection of the lower eyelid where you are epilating the eyelashes permanently. So these are about the treatment options available for. So the next topic is the dystichiasis. If you remember the eyelid margin anatomy, there was a grey line here in the center of the eyelid margin. On the outer surface we had the eyelashes and the inner surface the meibomian glands. This is the normal anatomy of the eyelid margin. But in case of dystichiasis, an extra row of eyelashes come and occupy the place of this meibomian glands. But the peculiarity is this is not directed like this normal eyelashes, but instead they are almost misdirected like trichiasis. So that causes the problem. If the eyelashes were in normal position, I don't think it was causing so much of problem. But now it is almost acting like trichiasis and giving rise to same symptoms and signs as I told for trichiasis. Again, the causes are it can be congenital or acquired. The acquired causes are almost similar to those which are causing trichiasis, like the Stevens-Johnson syndrome, cicatricial pemphigoid, chemical injuries on the conjunctival side. Madrosis is nothing but partial or complete loss of the eyelashes. Okay, so it can involve the eyelashes of the eyelid or even the eyelashes of the eyebrows. So it is important to know about the causes here. The local causes are like cicatricial pemphigoid, chronic blepharitis. It can be following cryotherapy. It can be following radiotherapy. In systemic causes, we have as a part of alopecia areata, in cases of the psoriasis, hypothyroidism and leprosy. So these are the causes for madrosis. Just remember, it is partial or complete loss of eyelashes and the causes. So the next anomaly with the eyelashes is the trichomegaly. Tricho is eyelash of the cilia, megaly is bigger in size. So the eyelashes become long in size, length. So the causes can be congenital, familial, or it can be even drug induced, especially following topical prostaglandin analogs which are used for glaucoma treatment. This becomes problematic when you are using topical prostaglandin analogs to treat the unilateral glaucoma patients, where the eyelashes will grow more on that side, whereas on the other side it is normal. So it becomes cosmetically obvious. Okay, and when the patient is using phenytoin and the cyclosporine, it can lead to trichomegaly. So the next anomaly with the eyelashes is the poliosis. Poliosis is nothing but graying of the eyelashes or the whitening of the eyelashes. The causes can be again local or the systemic. Local causes we have blepharitis, sympathetic ophthalmitis and uveitis. In systemic causes we have VKH syndrome, that is Vogt-Koyanagi-Arada syndrome, Waardenburg syndrome, vitiligo and the Marfan syndrome. So these are the causes for poliosis. All these disorders of the eyelashes can be asked for your 3-mark question. Just remember the definition and know the causes. That's more than enough. So hope this session was useful. If you find it useful,